is in a terrible time position. He only has 22 minutes. Robert was mentioning that knight c7, there's knight f2 things in the air.
Right.
We were looking at rook b2, rook c4, knight f2, but what about knight f2 right away? That also has to be examined.
I didn't consider it, Jen. Let's take a look at what you're mentioning. Knight takes f2, attacking the queen. It seems reasonable to ask the question, king takes f2. I assume rook takes b2 check is where you're thinking, and
queen h5, just trying to, whoa!
Yeah, I got
queen
the wrong.
h5 and trying to go queen e2 or queen h2, and if you prevent that with like something like h4, bam, queen e2, and we see why those rooks leaving make things very fun here for the party in the second rank for black.
Absolutely.
And that looks winning, right? I mean,
absolutely, no question about it. Knight takes f2 is a wonderful sacrifice.
Queen f3, queen h2 check anyway. And
I think white is going to have to pull back his horns a bit here. Jeffrey's going to have to sit there and say, whoa, 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 I can't essay that move, knight c7, and he'll have to probably withdraw his knight. But then after knight takes b2, although I questioned the validity of what black's knight on b2 is doing, I'll answer my own question, which is it's winning a pawn, and it can be defended with a move c4, c3. Has Wesley outplayed his world junior champion opponent?
And we do have knight c7 on the board.
The kid took on c7. So
whoa! Jeffrey playing with fire. Maybe about to get
and there it goes. Knight takes f2
instantly by Wesley. So knight takes f2.
And do you want to go over those variations again after
right.
king f2, rook b2? Why is that the end for those of us watching? Well, first let's look at king e1 doesn't do much help because we've got to check on a5.
In this particular case, you're absolutely right. You're checking on a5, and you're about to deliver a slam bang mate along the second rank, so we can definitely rule out that move. The other two choices, king f1, king g1, as mentioned, it seems that in either case this queen is going to slide across the fifth rank with these terrible threats of crashing through on the second rank. Jeffrey doubtlessly considered the move knight f2, king takes f2. He played it rather quickly and confidently, but what does he have in mind? I'm flummoxed myself. Maurice, white in big trouble.
Yeah, the engine's giving triple zeros, of course.
No!
Position. But look at those players. Did you see that camera angle? The players who are now staring at the board, they're fascinated.
Yeah.
Bar and Shaba, they're like, hey, what's going on this board? This looks like fun.
Yep.
Glad to not be playing it myself. Clearly fascinating position for these top players as the war is on. And of course, VAR is looking on with special interest as he is tied for first right now with Wesley. And he's checking it out saying, wait a minute, if Wesley's winning, then he's going to take a lead against me. And then I'd have to beat Fabi. Not what I want to do. And now finally, he's cleared out a little bit, but he's sort of still hanging around this table. He's decided or hoping that it's not over. Well, it's not over, according to the engines. And again, I let the engine stay analyzing all this time I've been speaking, and still triple zeros in this position. Let's go down the line. Rook takes on b2 check. The key move, king to f1. Don't fall for this queen h5 stuff where you're just going to get killed if you go to other squares. Now, believe it or not, the engines are giving triple zeros in all the lines, including the move it considers the best, c3. Push the pawn. You have this threat of c2 and rook b1 coming shortly. Well, c2, c1, of course, but it's all about deflection. By the way, queen c6 will trap this knight. That's another thing just to remember in the position, because that might crop up in variations. So c3. Now let's go back, because of course all of us want to play queen h5.
Right.
Probably Wesley as well. And now you've got to play like a genius. Queen g4, according to the engines. Queen h2. And how can this not be made? I mean, it just looks so bad. But now queen to f3. And now you stare down the position and there's no real mate. But the engines, now that we're in this position, the engine's coming up with c3 and saying, this position might be too tough for white to defend in the long run. White's not getting mated after rook to h4. Look at this. The queen has to find a square. It's almost trapped. Well, not quite, of course. It can go over. It's giving queen c2 as best, and the game is suddenly about the c-pawn, not about mate. So very interesting play. I think this is the route that Wesley's going to go down. It's too natural. King f1 has been played. So although the engines give c3 right now as the optimal move, when you see this line, you think, this is the way the human will play it. Queen h5 looks like such a natural attacking move, and the kid's going to have to find all kinds of accurate defensive moves, and I'm not sure he's still coming out of it alive. It looks like he might still be in trouble as the more we analyze this position, getting closer and closer to the actual threats that black will have, it looks as though white might be busted.
Maurice, you and I both know there's no way in heck we would have analyzed this any further than knight f2, king f2, rook b2, king f1 or g1, queen h5. We would have stopped. We would have stopped.
That's a money attack.
Exactly. We would say, you're busted. And
are you sure Jeffrey saw it? With the speed that
knight
he played king f1?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm still kind of I'm kind of shocked actually.
Look at Danny. Danny, look, there it is. Everybody who passes this board has to stop.
Has to stop. Knight takes c7 is just got trouble written all over it. There's no way I would have played knight f4 and said, okay, do your worst. But
he did think 12 minutes on knight takes c7, so he probably was analyzing the ramifications of knight f2.
This attack just looks overwhelming.
But with only 22 minutes left on his clock also, I mean, that's the other problem. Wesley's got 3 times as much time as Jeffrey.
As well as the initiative. This is not a position that the world junior champion wanted to find himself in.
By the way, the engines that said don't take on f2 play knight a6 in that position. Seems weird, I know. If you pull up your board, in this moment after knight c7, knight f2, queen is hanging, knight a6 was
really
hitting black's queen in that position is considered maybe your best route out of it. Certainly a significant line as well. Not necessarily
knight takes e4, knight takes c5, knight takes c5,
and rook takes on c4.
Sacrificing a piece for some very dangerous looking pawns, I must admit.
Looking though, right? I mean, knight b3 looks problematic, but I guess.
Wow, what a line this would have ended up being as well.
Interesting.
Maybe knight takes a6 was a much better bailout variation because, Maurice, the line that you took us down, I'm sitting there shaking my head saying, no, don't play like this, Jeffrey. You're in trouble. Your king is just too vulnerable. Sorry.
King f1.
King f1 is a key move.
And then he was doing queen g4 and queen f3.
I just hate these computers. Sorry, guys. But 0-0-0 in a position like this, and only later coming up with the idea that, well, in fact, black is for choice after queen c2.
The thing is that the computer saw perpetual check.
Right. Queen d2.
There's rook d1 here
and
queen
c2. Queen c2 is the key move.
Exactly.
Not queen d2.
Okay.
Oh, but yeah, the problem with queen d2 is that rook d1 seems to gain a tempo. You don't have c2 there, do you?
No, because he can take and then play rook back to c1.
Just for our viewership,
yeah.
If you do play c2,
so we just traded queens.
But you lost your big, you lost your big pawn at the end of that. So
exactly.
So that was why queen c2,
which is a little bit counterintuitive if you're looking at it from far away, because you don't want to put your queen in front of your pawn.
Right. Of course, you don't want to step. But having said this, just a second. I mean, again, white's king. Definitely in trouble. There are ideas. Pardon me. I wanted to bring up. There's ideas like rook b8 and rook b1 check. What the heck is your rook doing on h4? What the heck is your knight doing on c7? Black's got all the threats, including rook b1 check, trading rooks, so you can play c3, c2. I don't like Jeffrey's position. I don't care what the computer says.
So 11 minutes, do you think, 11 minutes on this move, do you think he really analyzed all of this, or he just kind of had a blind spot for knight f2 and rook b2 check?
Back in this moment, find the key move of this whole thing is e5. This rook is not allowed to stay in the game, and this is what's going to cost the youngster the game after e5. Now if the rook decides to go all the way back home, Now e4 comes back again. Remember that e4 move, disrupting the queen, is the core point. The queen now cannot hang its mate. The queen just can't do anything because of the mate threats. So the queen is frozen. By playing e5, you disrupt this rook to go to c4. Now that the rook is out of the way, now it's time to bring this. There's no more mate. There's no rook d1. There's no rook c3 because of e4. e5 is the money move that will make this a beautiful, beautiful attacking game. And we'll see whether or not Wesley finds it on the next move. I have no doubt he's going to play e5. Rook to h4, queen d2, rook d1. Looks like you gain a tempo, disrupt the attack. The money move, rook to d8, protecting the queen, threatening to capture on d1 and say, what do you got to do? Rook takes here, simply rook d2, and there are mate threats abounding on the board. White is simply helpless. The only move that doesn't stop instant mate, well, mate in 8 is what the computers are saying will happen, is this move, and then simply the move c2, or first start with a check. This move, queen f1. Now you can play c2 in this position. The game's over. The game's over. It's black for choice. What to do? Rook to c4 would be the only move. Wait a minute. We're going to just collect your queen in this position. You have to take on c2. Give us this guy, king up, and then simply any move, this one being the simplest. We're going to go down, take everybody. The rook is just dominant. The game is over. The key move, once you play it, rook d8, and that's it. You cement the whole game. And right now we have it right here, still e5. Sorry, I'll go back to this moment. e5, the disruptive move. The rook simply cannot do everything it needs to do. It was great on d4. Just like this queen is fixed to the f3 point, the rook is fixed to the d4 point, and e5 just wins in all lines.
Wow, beautiful stuff, Maurice.
Doesn't change anything.
Yeah, rook takes d5, as Maurice has been mentioning throughout. You can't, your queen, the white queen on f3 is actually fixed to the square because of the checkmate's threats. You can't take that queen, and after rook takes, you've just transposed right back into Maurice's main line.
Without a knight.
Without a knight.
If only we could also move the pawn forward with a tempo.
Exactly.
Then we'd be talking.
Well, you do that in blitz, right? You play knight d5 while simultaneously nudging your pawn up to the c7 square.
That's a good hustle move, yeah.
Hey, I'm learning it from the Brooklynites.
And there it is. Rook takes
d5 on the board.
It is resignable now. Scintillating victory.
And this will bring Wesley So most likely into a clear lead in the championship, and his rivals will really be chasing him.
But guess who's being outplayed? VAR Okobian is outplaying Fabiano Caruana in their setup.
Right.
And VAR, remember we said
After c7, you can just
I get
play.
to queen for. I get to queen.
You can just queen first after rook c1 check, king f2, king g1. You can just play rook g1 checker.
Yep. And queen.
And that's the end of a very
Beautiful
spectacular game in the championship, which could determine the winner.